we put up that sign there.
New billboards are up on the corner of Chicago and Austin to bring awareness in the fight for reparations.
We're on this campaign to be able to get Black Chicagoans not to have to pay property taxes.
Re-ran Reconstruction-era Reparations Act now founder Howard Ray Jr. says the push for reparations is for those who are descendants of slaves. His team says slavery took away the ability to create generational wealth for blacks, and those in Chicago are living that reality.
We have a problem where our black citizens in Chicago are being kicked or forced out of Chicago, and they're going to the southern states to live comfortably.
Re-ran says they want all black Chicagoans who own property to be exempt from paying property taxes. The group wants to make this a referendum on the November ballot. They say they will use census data to track descendants of slaves who would qualify for this regardless of financial status, and that if voted into action would last for generations.
We have talked about 400 years.
In 2019, Evanston took the lead with the nation's first municipally funded reparations program for formerly enslaved residents. $25,000 each toward home improvements, a down payment, or mortgage assistance.
We have so many areas of harm, therefore we're going to have many forms and remedies that are going to be required. But taking the first step is very important.
According to the 2022 Census American Community Survey, the black homeownership rate in Chicago is the lowest of any other racial group, with just 35% owning homes. It's what Ray Jr. says the referendum will fix.
We need to be isolated, taken care of, brought up to par, and then brought back into society.
Boston People's Reparations Commission met with clergy and community members today to continue its push for reparations in the city. The grassroots organization has called on the city of Boston to pay $15 billion for its role in slavery. Organizers say the demand is just an initial payment and still would not be enough to make up the impact of slavery on black Bostonians.
Obviously, it is incalculable. It is impossible to put any dollar number on what African Americans have gone through in this country.
What we're doing is we're mobilizing, having conversations, educating the community about Boston's role in the transatlantic slave trade, the disparities within the communities, and we're working towards gathering stories to figure out solutions.
The money would go toward residents and institutions and address racial inequities in the city. The commission has been advocating for cash reparations since 2018.
So we call on the white church in Boston to join us in supporting a black reparations movement.
Standing in solidarity, clergy leaders from across the city of Boston gathered for an interfaith, multiracial meeting at the Resurrection Lutheran Church in Roxbury, Nubian Square. They're here to ask the religious community to atone for black Boston suffering and support black reparations.
And we are coming, as Dr. King said, to get our check.
Organizers from the Boston People's Reparation Commission say they're also following up on their demand on the city of Boston for a $15 billion initial payout to begin the process towards repair and reconciliation to the city's black community.
$5 billion as initial payment around cash payouts, $5 billion around strengthening our financial institutions, creating a new black bank, $5 billion in terms of addressing issues of the education achievement gap between blacks and whites.
In 2022, the Boston City Council and Mayor Michelle Wu offered an official apology for the city's involvement in the transatlantic slave trade. She also launched 2 task force research teams to study Boston's role in slavery and its long impact on descendants.
So we still suffer from the trauma of those instances, and even today, dealing with racism.
On Saturday, this group called on the white church in Boston to support the black community for its association in slavery.
Today we call upon this city, its financiers, and its white churches to stop the shirking, stop the lying, tell the truth, and pay what is owed.
Pass. A story that is sparking a lot of community conversations in Maryland. Prince George's County leaders are once again continuing their push for state action on slavery reparations.
And this is an effort that has failed several times in the state legislature, but new support could change things in the future.
The legacy of slavery is not a distant memory.
Baltimore City Delegate Alethea McCaskill is leading the push for reparations in the Maryland legislature. She's in Prince George's County today to collect the full support the Prince George's County Council.
Reparations for the descendants of the enslaved are not about handouts or empty gestures. They're about recognizing the unpaid debts owed to the descendants of those who suffered the yoke of slavery.
Prince George's council member Juanica Fisher has introduced a resolution with unanimous support from the rest of the council, which states that the Prince George's County government wants the legislature to pass a bill setting up a reparations commission to figure out how reparations should be paid.
There's not one simple solution that's going to make people whole. The bill has many recommendations, from whether it's free college access, payment, whether it could be cash payments for lost wages, equity loans.
Figuring out who qualifies will be among the first challenges, but Josephine Morning of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference says modern genetic testing is one answer.
I mean, if I can send off and find out who all of my relatives are, then I don't feel we should have a problem figuring out who are actually descendants of slaves here in the state of Maryland.
President of the Urban League of Rochester, Chanel Hawkins, has been named to the state's commission to study reparations and racial justice. Governor Kathy Hochul and legislative leaders announced appointments to the 9-member commission this afternoon. Dr. Hawkins is a native of Brooklyn, New York. In 2019, she became the first woman CEO of the Urban League here in Rochester. News 8 spoke to Hawkins when the bill was signed into law last December.
My hope is that Rochester will have some representation on that commission so that we can really learn specifically about what can we do here in Rochester and what funding is available to help in our community. We hope that this will be the interruption to racism, but also looking at inequities and creating and exploring real pathways of those that have been impacted by slavery.
The commission is charged with examining the legacy of slavery and its lingering negative effects on people living in New York. The panel is expected to hold public hearings and is required to provide a report with recommendations to state leaders within a year.
Advocates are pushing for reparations to happen here in Georgia. They're urging for a reparations bill to move forward with a new hearing.
They want it to get ahead of crossover day at the state capitol. Atlanta News First Yasmina Alston has their argument why Black Georgians should get reparations.
A bill to create the Georgia Equity and Fairness Commission. House Bill 955 would allow that commission to look at the impact of Georgia's slavery on the descendants of slaves and then finding the appropriate remedies for those descendants. The bill sponsor is Representative Roger Bruce. Supporting the bill is Reparations Push, a reparations-based organization that focuses on pushing that issue forward and fighting so that injustices of past actions towards Black Georgians are repaid. Inquis Cosby with the group says they're collaborating with state lawmakers and other advocates to make sure the bill moves forward.
This is the civil rights capital Georgia is. So whatever happens in Georgia happens all around this nation. Because we have Dr. King's legacy, we have Malcolm X's family legacy, we have Elijah Muhammad's family legacy, and all of the Ray Charles and everybody else that fought for civil rights, that stood up for something.
Well, the St. Louis City Reparations Commission hears from Mayor Tashara Jones at their meeting tonight. The mayor will present her Economic Justice Action Plan. She'll talk about the progress being made to reverse what she calls decades of disinvestment in North St. Louis. The commission was set up in 2022 to explore ways to repair race-based harms like slavery and segregation.
Chavez Ravine has been the home of the Dodgers for the last 62 years, but before that, 3 vibrant neighborhoods stood on that land.
Well, now, a bill in the state assembly would address the injustices faced by people who were kicked out of their homes.
You know, I think we all like to get into some good trouble.
Activists and state leaders are looking to draw attention to the stories of people like 81-year-old Carol Jaquez.
It was really very traumatic and very difficult for me.
She was born in what is now known as Chavez Ravine, home to Dodger Stadium. When she was 8, her family lost their homes to eminent domain.
Many of us were homeowners. I want to say we were not a slum.
Which is why Assemblywoman Wendy Carrillo and Insurance Commissioner Ricara Lara introduced a bill this week to look at reparation for families who lost their homes through eminent domain or eviction in the 1950s.
By creating a public and searchable database detailing events surrounding the land acquisition, this will foster transparency and education about this pivotal moment.
What's your stance on reparations?
Well, 100%. I believe it's appropriate.
David Hernandez is the Republican Party Regional Vice Chair of LA County.
I think there needs to be some insurances within the process that it stays focused on those who benefited financially, not the taxpayers of Los Angeles.
The attorney behind the reparation effort says the return of Bruce's Beach to a black family has set precedent. Activists are now looking at models across the country to figure out what reparation will look like and who qualifies.
We are going to take time to create a task force that does the investigation and the data-driven analysis.
Our top story. As we all know, Congress recently approved paying over $1 trillion to African Americans as reparations for slavery. Well, today, the first checks were sent out.
Get the money, y'all. There's poor people around. With your broke ass.
Right, baby. I just bought this truck straight cash. And I got enough cigarettes to last me and my family for the rest of our lives. I'm rich, biatch.
These checks aren't just affecting things on Beach Street. Wall Street is having a big day as well.
Get this, Sprint stock has skyrocketed after the news that 2 million delinquent phone bills have been paid just this morning. Incredible. Gold is way up. Diamonds are at their most expensive level ever. Catchphrase around here is certainly bling bling.